Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you to everyone who's joining us for this virtual candidate forum. I'm Monica Hopkins, the Executive Director of the ACLU of the District of Columbia. I should acknowledge that this is the first time that we are doing a virtual candidate forum like this one. And so we are doing the best we can to adhere to as much inclusivity as possible. Along those lines, and before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes. Everyone who is watching this live via Zoom right now is on mute and your cameras are not on. This event is also being recorded and live streamed through Facebook. So given the sheer number of people on this call and viewing, we will not be able to answer live voice questions. If you would like to ask a question during the forum, please use the Q&A box down below, located at the bottom of your screen. Your questions will be viewable and you may see the questions people ask by clicking that Q&A box. If you have the same question as other people, you can hit the like or thumbs up button to raise that question up in the queue. Questions will be screened and asked at the moderator's discretion. If you have a question in need of translation, simply type your question into the Q&A bubble and the translators will translate the question for the moderator. We do have translation on the webinar. The phone number is up on the screen and people have been asked to slow down their speech so that everyone is able to understand. We thank the translators and our captioner for making this as accessible as possible. A little note about timekeeping and rowdiness. Finally, on the screen, there will be a virtual timekeeper. Candidates understand they have to keep it within that time, and if they go over past the moderator letting them know that it is time, they will be muted by our tech support. Adhering to these boundaries allows us to facilitate an accessible candidate forum. So this evening, we are hosting tonight's forum with an outstanding group of more than 15 other local groups indicated here on the screen. And our topic is the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system has been in need of serious reform for decades, but the current public health crisis caused by the coronavirus has exposed how dire the situation is. Our agencies lacked clear emergency protocols for how to deal with a pandemic, and those caught in the criminal legal system have suffered for it. Dozens have been needlessly sickened and some have died. Tonight, we'll ask candidates running for DC Council in wards 2 and 4 their views on these issues. The first hour will be Ward 2, and then at 7 p.m. we'll welcome Ward 4 candidates. I am absolutely delighted that Fennett Nirapil of the Washington Post, who's amongst our most dogged DC Council reporters, has joined us tonight as the moderator. Fennett Nirapil covers the DC government and politics. Before he joined the Washington Post in 2015, he covered the California State House for the Associated Press and suburban government outside Portland, Oregon for the Oregonian. Welcome, Fennett. I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you for having me, and thank you everyone who's tuning in to take part in their civic life and local politics, even as life is trying to grind to a halt because of this pandemic. So the good thing about a debate like this is I don't have to tell everyone, no cheering, no booing. You can cheer as loud as you want and boo as loud as you want from the comfort of your homes because you're not going to be disrupting this debate. So we're going to get on with it with the questions, and I'll also caution the audience, because we have a large number of candidates in only one hour, we're not going to be able to get every candidate to answer every question, but we will make sure that candidates all get time to weigh in on issues, and at the end we'll give an opportunity for any candidate to draw a contrast with one of their opponents or to address a question that they wanted to weigh in on. So with that said, we will start off by having 1-minute opening statements by all the candidates. And I randomized the order that we'll have candidates go in. And one thing I would suggest candidates to is in your opening statement, you might want to address if you're confident in the city's COVID-19 response and if there's anything you would have done differently. So with that, we will start off with Jordan Grossman. You have a minute.
Thank you, Fennett, and thank you to our hosts. I really appreciate the opportunity for the discussion. For those of you I haven't met yet, my name is Jordan Grossman. I'm a 5th-generation DC resident. I've spent my career in public service. I know that working in public service is a privilege. It's not a business opportunity. But I think privilege is a really important topic for us to discuss tonight. You know, Jack Evans, who resigned from this Ward 2 seat, one of his colleagues on the DC Council, Kenyon McDuffie, said his flagrant violation of our corruption laws was an extreme version of privilege. Yet it also illustrates an important, stark divide. Jack still walks free, but we have thousands of members of our community, especially Black and brown residents of our community, that are incarcerated, often on flimsy charges or paper-thin evidence. I think it's time for a clean break from both of these dynamics. We need an ethical council member, but we also need one who's truly committed to not only reducing violence, but reducing incarceration and truly addressing the shameful racial disparities we see in our policing. Thank you.
All right, next up is Patrick Kennedy.
Well, thank you very much, Bennett. It's good to see you, if only over a screen. And thanks so much to the organizers of this event. I'm grateful for the opportunity. My name is Patrick Kennedy. I've been an advisory neighborhood commissioner in Foggy Bottom for the last 8 years. I'm serving in my 5th term as the chair of the commission. And I'm grateful for the topic of focus this evening because it really is so central to whether we become a more equitable city moving forward, whether we can look at the racial disparities that are this country's original sin and unwind them from our criminal justice system that punishes people disproportionately. We see these disparities, I think, reflected in everything that we do as a society. And Fennett, to your point, it's particularly reflected in our response to COVID-19. When you look at the disproportionate number of cases and fatalities that are experienced in the African-American community of this city. So we need to do a lot better job. And we need to do a lot better job, not only in the short run with our response to COVID-19, but in terms of our broader systematic consideration that only deepens a lot of the inequities that we face. And I look forward to discussing that this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Our next up is Brooke Pinto.
Hi, I'm Brooke Pinto. Thank you so much to ACLU and Fennett and the other partner organizations for having us here tonight and for helping the district get it better, get our COVID response plan right. As a former Assistant Attorney General, issues around criminal justice are of central importance to me in this campaign. I'm really proud to have worked for one of the most progressive attorney generals in our country with the first in-house restorative justice program of any prosecutor's office in the country. At OAG, I served on the Mayor's Task Force for Jails and Justice. I served in the American Bar Association Criminal Justice Panel, and I represented the District of Columbia on National Association of Attorneys General Cannabis Advisory Panel. But there's much more work to be done. We need to address the community problems at the root. We need to get more violence interrupters in our street, more school resources to address behavioral challenges and family resources so we can help people not commit crime in the first place. I want to expand voting rights of our incarcerated population to increase civic engagement. I'm really glad to have worked with many of the co-hosts on this call this evening and look forward to continued partnership going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. John Fanning is next.
Hi, John Fanning. Thank you so much for sponsoring this event. Thank you, Fennett, and all the sponsors. Again, my name is John Fanning. I'm a candidate for DC Council. And I'm running for City Council because I want to solve problems for residents and I know how to do it. I'm a 6-term ANC Commission, present chairman of Advisory Neighborhood Commission 2F. I have served as the community liaison for Ward 2 under several mayors. Some of the issues that I would like to work on to reform our criminal justice system is, one is to explore every opportunity to transfer management of the courts and the criminal justice system under the DC government. I would also like to focus on bail reform. And I would also like to focus in the next 2 years building a prison in the city so we don't have to transfer our residents to 35 different states. Thank you.
Next up is Jack Evans.
Thank you and good evening. And I want to thank Monica, Suzanne, Fennett, and the ACLU of DC for hosting this forum on criminal justice reform in the District of Columbia. Since 1997, I have been a card-carrying member of the ACLU and have always stood up and defended the civil liberties of our residents. And for instance, in 1991, when I was first elected, the first bill I introduced was legislation to repeal the anti-sodomy law, which targeted our LGBTQ residents. And I was the first elected official in the region to support marriage equality when it was not popular. I'm proud of my record on these and other issues, and I know we must do much more to ensure that everyone's civil liberties are protected. Today, we are experiencing a health and economic crisis that will affect every community and test our elected officials. This crisis will also undoubtedly reveal areas where we can improve our justice system. The city is expected to face a $1 billion crisis.
Mr. Evans, your time is up. If you can wrap up.
Sure. My experience fighting for the rights of the residents and for economic recessions is ideal for the moment. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Next up is Daniel Hernandez.
Hi, good evening. I'm Dan Hernandez. I want to say thanks to Fennett and thanks to ACLU of DC and all the partner organizations for putting this together. As we talk about criminal justice reform this evening, this is actually one of something I feel very passionate about and one of my core drivers to run for office in the first place. I grew up in a working class neighborhood with a lot of people in and out of the criminal justice system, and my family as well. We need to unwind the harm that the war on drugs has done in our communities and our society over the past 40 years. As we look at one of the immediate effects, you see here in the DC jail, the coronavirus response there, and our inability to get on top and get ahead of that, and the infection rate that we're seeing there is something we need to do better on. Hope to talk more about all this evening. Thank you.
And before we move to Kishan Putta for the last opening statement, I'll just remind everyone who's watching here, if you can increase the screen so you have all the candidates visible, that would be helpful because we are going to have some questions where we're going to ask candidates to raise their hands if they agree and to raise their hands if they disagree. So with that, Mr. Putta, you're next.
And you also have Yilin as well, right?
Yes, we do. Okay. Yes. She's up next, sorry.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Shall I start?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. Hello, everybody. My name is Kishan Putta. I've lived in our city for over 15 years. I love our city. I want to make it better for everyone, not just the privileged. For the last 6 years, I was working for DC HealthLink. For the last 15 years, working on healthcare in DC. Worked across our city in all 8 wards with the vulnerable communities that didn't have access to healthcare, and worked very hard to help them get to the second lowest uninsured rate in the country. And I've been working on healthcare so much. I care about it so much to get us out of this crisis right now. I've been talking about healthcare disparities for years, and not just talking about it, rather working on it to ameliorate these problems. We're now seeing how bad it can be. As the child of immigrants, I know it's high time we need more diversity on our council. In a city of immigrants, we have no immigrants or children of immigrants on the council. I will want to bring that needed diversity so that all voices are heard. That's what I've been doing as a commissioner for many years, and I want to do more for you. Thank you.
All right, next up is Yilin Zhang.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, great. This is Yilin Zhang. I first of all want to thank the ACLU, all of our co-sponsors, and Fennett for having us tonight. My name is Yilin Zhang. I'm a transplant from Michigan and a first-generation Chinese American. And I came to DC about 10 years ago. I've spent the majority of my career working on healthcare access, making sure that people have access to healthcare information and access to quality healthcare. I'm running because I believe that every resident deserves to have a voice in our democracy and a voice that is heard. It's very important to me that it's not okay for someone to be born in a zip code and for that to help determine their success and ability to thrive in life. And so that is why I believe we need to fight for the rights of our most vulnerable populations. That includes our homeless population, making sure that they have access to the right wraparound services, not just housing, and also making sure that our sex workers can work in a safe space and that we decriminalize sex work, because I do not believe that people should have to live with the weight of legal discrimination. And so today I really look forward to the conversation that we'll be having. Thank you.
All right. Thank you everyone for getting through opening statements without any technical glitches. So let's hope it stays that way. So our first question is going to be one where we ask candidates to raise your hands if you disagree, or to raise your hands if you agree. So raise your hands if you are confident in the DC government's response to DC jail and containing the spread of coronavirus at DC jail. So raise your hands if you support the DC government's approach and if you have confidence in the DC government's approach. Now raise your hands if you do not have confidence in DC government's approach. All right, so I didn't see Jack Evans or Yulin Zhang answer either way on this. So we'll start off by asking Mr. Evans, what are your thoughts on how the DC government has worked to contain the spread of coronavirus at DC jail?
Yeah, the reason I didn't raise my hand the first time is because, or the second time, is the way you asked the question. Do I have confidence in the DC government? Yes, I do. I have confidence that the DC government will get this right. Where the DC government has failed is we were faced with a crisis that was out of nowhere. Now, should have we been prepared for this? Yes, the whole country should have been, we should have been, and we weren't. This government is a government that can get things done, our mayor and our council. At the DC jail, though, we have too many people who have been cramped in too tight a space, who are exposed to this virus, and we have not reacted in a fast enough fashion in order to correct that problem. We have to put distance between the prisoners. We have to release those who should not be in jail for minor crimes, and make sure that everyone is tested and everyone gets the quality care that they need. So I believe we can get there. So I do have confidence in this, but those steps are the things that need to be done.
Thank you. We'll have Kishan Putta answer next.
This is a very important question. And the problem, you've been seeing the tragic consequences. I heard a shocking statistic that the infection rate inside the jail is 15 times that in society right now. That is unconscionable. You forget whether we're prepared or unprepared. You can't let that happen in our city to our people. That is a failure of government. And I know that, that under court orders, we're now doing something about it. And of course, I'm so glad that the ACLU sued. That's why we need the ACLU. That's why we need advocates like you pushing to raise the moral alarm. And now they're finally cleaning the jails out and distancing people and having more volunteers there to help out. But gosh, why did it take so long? Why did we have to get so many people sick? I've worked with the incarcerated community through DC HealthLink and at the halfway houses as well. We need to do better by these people. Thank you.
All right, so as I mentioned at the start of the debate, we're not going to be able to have everyone answer every question, but we'll have an opportunity at the end so that candidates can weigh in on issues they didn't get a chance to. So with that, this next question will be for everyone. We're going to get another revenue estimate later this week, and what we've already heard is that we're bracing for the DC government to cut $600 million from next year's budget. So the budget is going to be a big area of focus for the DC Council. So with that in mind, what areas do you see as the most ripe for cutting from the DC budget? And what would you fight to protect in the DC budget? So we randomized the order of who would answer these questions. So first up is Brooke Pinto. You have 1 minute.
Hi, Bennett. Thanks so much. And the latest estimates, Jeffrey DeWitt, the CFO, has closer to $1 billion in expected shortfalls this year, which is really concerning. So there are a lot of things we can do. Number one, I aim to more successfully leverage our relationship with the federal government to get our fair share of the additional $750 million that was given to every state. federal government is not going to treat us like a state, then we also shouldn't be paying federal taxes. So that's the first place to start. Second, we need to make sure that we're bolstering up our essential services like our healthcare, education, and our public safety, and not having cuts across the board so that those essential services can stay intact. And then sadly, some other things may need to be cut. I'm supportive of the mayor's difficult decision to have hiring freezes across the city government and prevent travel and future furloughs that are going to be really difficult to folks that people are considering. There are ways we have been talking about making sure they're staggered so that entire families aren't losing their paychecks. But I do think it's going to be really important to be responsible about these decisions in the next 2 years so this doesn't extend to 15 years.
All right. Next up is Dan Hernandez.
Sure. So I think some of the priorities of what we have to protect are health and human service responsibilities. We have to make sure people are healthy, that people are housed, that people are fed to as best we can, particularly in these times. I think broadly, recessions as we enter them, and this is kind of a forced recession for now. Those are the times that you use your rainy day funds. We don't quite have as many resources as the federal government to just borrow a couple $1 trillion and pay for something. But we should be looking at what we can to pay back in the better times. Some areas that cut, I think the first easy one to look at are a lot of the corporate or the tax expenditures and corporate tax cuts for businesses that has been analyzed many times as unnecessary business development. That's all for the time. Thank you.
All right. Next up is John Fanning. And for those just tuning in, the question is, what area would you fight to protect in the budget, and what do you see as ripe for cuts?
Thank you. Great question. So there's some things that, there's some duplicate, we would look for some duplicate services that we currently provide. And eliminate them. And of course, there's some initiatives that we probably won't be able to fund, like the subsidy for riding the bus and the rail for free. It's possible that we won't be able to fully fund BERT to 3, but I would do everything that I can to find some funding for it. My main concern right now is the youth employment program. So that's coming up, and what are we going to do? What's going to happen there with our city's youth? Is the program going to be suspended? So I think there's some city services that we can, that are duplicate, that we could find and possibly cut. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next up is Patrick Kennedy.
Thank you. I think that we absolutely need to center and hold harmless to the greatest extent possible investments that are going to relate to the existing public health crisis that we're obviously in right now and that we hope to emerge from. I think that we also need to safeguard programs and initiatives that the least fortunate and the most vulnerable in our city rely upon. I think those are the things that we can probably least afford to cut. But there's no question that when you're talking about a loss of $600 million or even higher, and that's just for this fiscal year, to say nothing of next, that there are going to be painful, I think, choices that have to be made. I think Brooke is right, going down the line of hiring freezes and some of those sorts of things are what we're going to have to look at to the extent that this is applied across the government. But I think it's also an opportunity to look at how we spend our money and look for better results and to do things better. I think our procurement system is broken. Our means of service delivery wastes inordinate amounts of money on a system that's just outdated and not responsive. So I think if we're smart about it, we use this as an opportunity to spend our money much more wisely and deliver much greater returns.
All right. Next up is Mr. Evans. You're the one who's actually been through the budget process before. What would you fight to protect, and what do you see as ripe for cutting?
Yeah, 3 times, 1996, 2001, and 2009. The shortfall is going to be between $600 and $1 billion. Our 2 local reserve funds will be enough to cover it through September 30th this fiscal year. Has to be paid back, so next fiscal year we're looking at that much of a cut in the government. Remember, in the government, we spend our money in 4 places. Education, human services, public safety, and debt service make up 80% of the government. That $15 billion budget, $6 billion is federal. You're down to $9 billion. Fixed costs take you down real quick to $4 billion. That's where you're going to have to find the $1 billion in savings. In that $4 billion, 80% of the money is in personnel. So you're going to have to look at personnel in every part of the government. In 2009, we had to furlough the government for 4 days and put in place RIFs and hiring freezes. This is the time for bold leadership. And as Linda Kropp used to say to me when I was vice chairman and she was chairman, we have to be responsible to let other people be irresponsible. And that's what leadership's all about.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Next up is Yilin Zhang.
So I think we need to focus on resiliency and recovery. So we need to build a resilient infrastructure. And for me, healthcare is a primary thing. DC has the highest maternal mortality rate in the United States. Wards 7 and 8 have some of the highest rates of diabetes in the entire country. And we need to focus to make sure that every resident has access to quality healthcare. We also need to work with our small businesses because the Paycheck Protection Program, it created a lot of rules and structures to get the money from the banks, and small businesses typically don't have the accounting structure to work very quickly. And so that was analyzed on a receipt basis. So a lot of the small businesses did not get that first roll of funding. And then in terms of cuts, I agree with John Fanning that we need to look at where there's duplication of processes and efforts and where we can do things more efficiently. And I also do agree with the standstill on hiring, travel, etc. And so we first need to look at where there is fat in the process and cut that out first.
Thank you. And the last word on the DC budget goes to Jordan Grossman.
Thank you. Look, I think in the middle of this health and economic crisis, it's more important than ever to invest in our values and priorities in the first place. So I think we need to invest in people who have lost their jobs. We need to help folks, families and small businesses that are struggling with the rent that's coming due and mortgage payments that are going to come due. We need to help our frontline workers, and that's not just healthcare workers. That's folks who drive our buses. That's folks who are at the grocery store. That's folks who now we realize are essential. I have to say that I get very concerned when people start to use these, we're going to have to make these tough choices type of things. When I think, we are told all the time in DC that we have a rainy day fund, that we got to save it for something really bad. Well, that's what's happening right now. And that's what we need to do. We also need to look at creative ways to, whether it's the Federal Reserve that's offering assistance to state and localities or other creative ways to do this. I've saved billions of dollars in government. I'm not saying we need to spend all the time, but we need to invest in our priorities, not do giveaways, the tax breaks and things like that, like a $300 million bailout some businesses have been asking for. Thank you.
All right, and we have gotten through and we still have not had any technical glitches, so I'm probably jinxing this, but let's hope it stays that way. So the next question will be a raise your hand question. So raise your hand if you support the Second Look Amendment Act, which expands opportunities to request resentencing for young adults who committed their offenses between the ages of 18 and 25. All right, so that looks like everyone. So I'll ask a follow-up. Raise your hand if you want to see substantial amendments to the bill as it's currently drafted. All right, looks like we don't have that much disagreement on that particular issue, so we'll go on to the next question there. This is a community question submitted by Andra Gray, and that is, what would you do to support transitional living for returning citizens even after halfway housing? So I'm going to call on 2 candidates at random, so we'll start with Dan Hernandez.
So I think this partially ties into addressing the overall housing crisis and having more housing available, which I think it makes it more affordable to provide housing assistance to people coming out. Particularly when you compare us globally or in the Western world even, and we are absolutely atrocious when it comes to recidivism. A lot of that is, people get out of jail, they try to get a job, and it's really hard to get a job with a record. We have to do better to get businesses to hire people who come out of jail with a record. We have to do better about job retraining and job placement programs. And we have to make sure that people have, you know, a place to stay when they come out. So I think it's simply, you know, we need to develop and provide the housing, and we need to do better about training and placement programs.
And the next candidate will get to answer this question, which is, what would you do to support transitional living for returning citizens, even after halfway housing, goes to Brooke Pinto.
So I think the first place to start here is having local control of our own parole. We can't expect our returning citizens to learn how to reintegrate to society when we don't even have management or control of our own parole. So that's place one. Two, I think there are a lot of really innovative and exciting approaches we have with our current returning citizens programs, with the roving leaders, with the violence interrupters, with our Cure the Streets programs at the Office of Neighborhood and Safety Engagement, as well as the Attorney General's office. Eric Weaver, who I think you wouldn't mind me saying, you may be on the call. Eric, who is a previous inmate, is now working at the Department of Corrections. And I think those partnerships are really creative in a good way to make sure that people who have previously been in the system are a part of the solution to helping us address our challenges. And they're also credible messengers to reduce recidivism, to get back into the community and say, here's how you can become civically engaged after you've served your time.
Bennett, you're muted.
All right, and now I'm responsible for the first tech problem. So to follow up on a point that Brooke Pinto made, raise your hand if you support taking back local control of our parole system from the U.S. Parole Commission. All right, so that looks like everyone is in agreement on that issue. So the next question comes from our sponsors. The District Task Force on Jails and Justice recently released a report with stunning statistics, including that 89% of the jail population is Black, despite Black residents making up less than half of DC's population. What would you do if elected to the council to address racial disparities in the DC criminal justice system? So we'll start off with Ms. Zhang
Well, it's a couple of components. We need to make sure that we take an entire public health approach, because as I said in the beginning, too often your zip code determines what happens to you in life, the quality of your schools, the quality of your healthcare, the quality of your grocery stores. And so we need to make sure that over the long term, we build resiliency in all the structures across the ward. So for me, the Ward 2 DC Council position is creating legislation across the entire city. So we need to take a one city approach. And then the other part is we need to get the data from MPD. We need data in real time. We need accurate data to make sure that we know what we're working with. And from there, build the solutions that get to the root of the issues. And a major portion of the arrests that occur in DC is related to robberies and theft. And that's probably because it's an issue of socioeconomic levels. And so we need to make sure that we create an economy and an infrastructure that is welcoming of all communities.
All right, next up is Jordan Grossman. How would you address racial disparities in the DC criminal justice system?
Thank you, and it's a great question. I think our host, ACLU, did phenomenal work in litigating to make sure we get the data that's required by the NEAR Act. And what it shows is not only dramatic racial disparities across the board, but even in the police districts that cover Ward 2, which is predominantly white, we have a huge proportion of our arrests are people who are Black. I think that type of disparity, that's how you use your data-driven approach to make sure that we're doing more oversight of MPD, reforming the procedures. That's just not acceptable, not at all. And I think the second piece is we do need to build back up the building blocks for folks to, as we mentioned the reentry questions, but there are other things too. We do need to decriminalize. I was very supportive of decriminalizing fare evasion, but we also need to decriminalize sex work and other things, or folks who are maybe disadvantaged on the margins, don't have many options, but are often getting criminalized. And that's not just folks like that, but there's also folks experiencing homelessness. So we need to take a broader approach to make sure that everything we're doing in government is informed with an equity lens, and we're taking it, making sure that we're reducing disparities across the board.
And with the next question, we'll allow the candidates who did not get to answer questions that weren't open up for all to answer them. So the next question is, in light of the current pandemic, jurisdictions, including DC, have been implementing new police practices like not jailing individuals for low-level offenses. Do you think these practices should continue after the pandemic is over and once we're starting to return to normal? So the two candidates who have not been able to answer individual questions yet are Patrick Kennedy and John Fanning. So we'll start off with Patrick Kennedy.
Yeah, I think the short answer is yes. I think, you know, like I always say, I think about the current situation that we're in. I think it does provide an opportunity into, you know, looking at some things that are truly necessary for us to function and for all different government services to be provided, and some things that were just being done, frankly, because that's always the way that things were done before. I think our adaptation to this crisis in some ways can provide a roadmap to better enforcement, and particularly around this question. I mean, I think most non-violent low-level offenses absolutely should be resolved with a citation, if that. And, you know, in some cases, it should probably be shifted over to civil infractions anyway. I mean, I recall there are disparities in enforcement around some of these offenses predating this crisis. I recall a friend of mine in college got a vending citation from MPD in front of the Foggy Bottom Metro. That's an offense that I've seen, you know, people who are African American get arrested for. So there's a disparity in terms of enforcement that I think has been going on for years, and I think this current crisis provides us with an opportunity to look at doing things much differently and much better.
Mr. Fanning?
Yes, I guess it would have to depend on the offense, like if it's drinking in public or somebody gets into an argument and they get into a fight. I mean, right now we're not in a good situation to keep folks in confinement. And a good example of that was at the Hope Village, the halfway houses that we had in Southeast. You know, they were confined, and unfortunately that's controlled by the Federal Bureau, managed by the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and which they should be releasing and deep cleaning those facilities and sending some of these residents to hotels. But it would basically have to depend on what the offense is. You know, like if somebody's smoking marijuana in public, I mean, 23 million people smoke marijuana. And is it an officer just want to, you know, arrest somebody to get time off of the street and write up a report? So they would have to be really selective because we're dealing with a very
Time is up.
All right, thank you.
So next we're going to move into a lightning round where I'm going to ask candidates to raise their hand if they support a particular bill. We may or may not have follow-up questions depending on where candidates stand on the issues. So to start off, raise your hand if you support ending the practice of police stop and frisk. And Ms. Pinto, you're not raising your hand, so can you expand on your position?
Sure. Of course, stop and frisk, the way it has been utilized across this country, is abhorrent and dehumanizing and needs to stop and has been racially applied. But the standard that the Supreme Court has laid out for reasonable suspicion of crime being afoot, warranting a stop and frisk, I don't think we can disallow all of our officers from getting involved if they do consider a crime being afoot. I think there are other things we need to do. There should not be any reason for any intimate touching during a stop and frisk. There should be 2 officers observing all of these interactions. There should be body cameras that are actually followed through to make sure that we can observe the data prior to the police having opportunity to review the footage before submitting an incidents report. So absolutely, the way stop and frisk has been applied is terrible and needs to be very much reformed, but I just wanted to provide the nuance that our officers do need to be able to engage when they do think crime is afoot and try to prevent crime before it happens.
Thank you. The next question for all candidates, raise your hand if you support the mayor's surveillance camera rebate program. All right, so I don't see Yilin Zhang and Jordan Grossman raising their hands. So Jordan Grossman, to start off, can you expand on your position on this issue?
Yeah, I think that, and I think this is again an area that our hosts, ACLU, and some of the other organizations have flagged. There's some really concerning things going on with surveillance footage that is being shared without people's knowledge or consent with a lot of law enforcement entities, not just our local law enforcement entities. And I think we need to work through a lot of those issues and protect people's privacy and data before we provide an incentive for folks to get you know, a surveillance camera, which everyone should be able to feel safe, but I think this is not necessarily the way to do it. I think we should be pursuing to make our neighborhoods safer is public health approaches like violence interrupters, where you have folks in your neighborhood who have deep roots, some of whom are returning citizens, who do interrupt violence before it starts, who do have connections in the community. I think that's a much better and safer approach to reduce violence and to make communities safer than to engage with sort of this surveillance approach, which has a lot of risks. And we all know what happens with, you know, data breaches and all this stuff these days. I think we need to be more careful.
Mr. Puta, it looks like you have something that you want to say.
Yeah. Listen, we have a security camera at our house and we got the rebate for it. And so do our neighbors. It's something that I have supported to help. But surveillance, of course, I'm, as a person of color, as a child of immigrants, I have very big qualms about it. I went to, I was part of the police department's Citizens Engagement Academy, and so I could push back for better policing. We went to the Unified Communications Center on MLK. I don't know if you've been there, Fennett, but they've got all the screens up there where they're surveilling the whole city. And it's not just people looking at it, it's computers too, algorithms written by Silicon Valley, which is largely white males who do not recognize the difference between my face and yours, or my face and others in this city. And it is a big problem that with surveillance, that it's very biased. There's a lot of concerns, and we do need, I do agree, of course, with the ACLU that we have to be cracking down and have a lot of oversight of surveillance.
Time's up.
On the council.
All right, so we're going to move to another raise hands questions. Raise your hand if you would oppose the DC allowing marijuana dispensaries that sell marijuana for adult use. If you would oppose the dispensaries, raise your hand. All right, we have no, looks like, does Brooke Pinto have opposition here?
Well, I'm absolutely in support of doing what we can do legally. Unfortunately, this is an issue I work very closely on in the Attorney General's office, another area where Congress has a spending rider over the district, as you know, that prohibits us from creating an adult use marketplace for cannabis. And so anything that we can do to legally implement our voter will, which legally passed marijuana and cannabis consumption for medical and recreational use in our city, I am in favor of, and really hope that Congress lets us operate within our own.
Thank you, Ms. Pinto. I just want to be fair with all the candidates since I called on you recently. And just to our viewers tuning in, there is a rider in the federal budget that prohibits the city from using its own funds on regulating marijuana, so that rider would need to come out before the DC Council can address this issue. So our next question, raise your hands if you support the creation of a civilian oversight board of the Metro Transit Police Department. All right, so I'd like to get Yilin Zhang and Jack Evans, who was the former chairman of the Metro Board, to weigh in here. So we'll start off with Ms. Zhang.
Well, I think it's really important to build trust between the police department and our community. And that means in all facets and levels, with our schools, with people who work in our restaurants and grocery stores, with people who've lived here for a short period or a long time. I think it's important that our residents have a voice on things that go on in their community. And right now, community policing, is not done in always the right way, right manner. And I think that we need to have more standardized training and approaches for teaching our residents and also our officers about how they can interact with each other better and how we should be making sure that our community is safe.
All right. Mr. Evans, what do you think about the idea of a civilian oversight board for Metro Transit Police?
I support the idea, and actually, if you look into history, I was one of the moving people behind the Civilian Complaints Review Board over the Metropolitan Police in the district back in the 1990s. Back in the 1990s, we had a riot on 17th Street on Halloween. It was a police riot when we were having our gay pride party there. And after that, we stepped in, and I know Kathy Patterson and I on the council did the first investigation of the Metropolitan Police Department, first issue of subpoenas by the council, and supporting the setting up of the Civilian Complaint Review Board. Metro, same deal. When I was chairman of the board for 3.5 years, it's an issue we looked at. We had a lot of other, as you know, we had a lot of other issues at Metro at that time, a system that had completely collapsed. And my focus at that time at Metro was getting dedicated funding, something that people said could never happen. And because of the dogged approach myself and others took, we were able to get Maryland and Virginia on board and get dedicated funding for Metro.
Thank you, your time is up.
And take the first steps of getting Metro fixed.
Okay. We'll now move to our last lightning round question. Raise your hand if you support the legislation to decriminalize sex work that was before the council last year and ultimately did not advance to a vote. And raise your hands if you oppose that legislation. All right, so we'll get in some of the candidates who we have not heard from. So Patrick Kennedy, you indicated opposition to the bill. Can you please expand?
Yeah, I think the current system is not working at all for anyone, and we certainly shouldn't be apprehending and locking sex workers up. That's a failed approach. In many cases, it's re-victimizing people who are engaging in survival sex work. But I think there is legitimate concern about the bill and what its impacts would be, in particular in relation to trafficking up and down the East Coast. We're looking at a model that's really been deployed only at scale in New Zealand. And I think for cultural reasons and for other reasons, employing it in the District of Columbia with surrounding jurisdictions that have very different laws, we need to, I think, tread a lot more carefully on that. I think that police resources need to be better focused on trafficking. I think that you can change some of the underlying laws to encourage more specific investigations into trafficking offenses. But if you remove all probable cause and all regulations from sex work as a business, as the way it's conducted right now, I'm not sure that the police would have a cause of action to investigate many trafficking complaints. And that was a concern of some of the advocates at the hearing. I think that there's a way to address this. And I think that there is a way, and especially to hold our most vulnerable really harmless in this entire process. But we need to proceed very carefully. We need to have maximum buy-in.
Thank you, your time is up.
Advocacy groups as well.
I'd like to hear a response from Daniel Hernandez, who indicated support for that legislation.
Sure, I think there's a couple of things here. One, we shouldn't be controlling what consenting adults agree to do, as long as they're not harming anyone else. Beyond that, we can't pretend to have it both ways. It's very clear the current situation only leads to more harm. It hurts the people in the system. The policing resources that might otherwise be able to target the trafficking that everyone is very deeply concerned about is too often oriented just towards policing the sex workers themselves. We've heard the stories of abuse from police officers and law enforcement across the country. New Zealand has implemented this successfully. There are other countries that are a lot farther ahead. Germany, lots of countries in Europe. This isn't working. And it's shown that Nordic model is not as good as it seems, and trafficking and harms to sex workers continues.
Thank you. Your time is up. And I'll also give John Fanning an opportunity to weigh in on this issue as someone who's been active on issues relating to sex work in War II.
Thank you, Fennec. Great question. So as many of you may know, I represent part of the red light district. As the chairman in prostitution in Logan Circle, sex working in prostitution in Logan Circle has been historic. And I think that the decriminalization does a couple things here. Of course, we want to protect the safety of the individuals that are in the line of work, sex work, but also trafficking. And my concern is that it will only bring more sex work to the street. So my concern is the safety, the trafficking of young individuals, and that the decriminalization may be protecting the pimps. So I would look at maybe some line of, how is it legalized? Give them a safe place to go.
Thank you. That's time.
Yeah.
And I'll also give a Yilin Zhang 30 seconds on this, and I'll give Jack Evans 30 seconds at the end as well.
Thank you. I just want to say three quick things: that this legislation, there's no direct causational relationship with an increase in trafficking. So if you decrim sex work, that does not lead to an increase in sex trafficking. The other part is that if we don't decrim this now, a lot of our sex workers, unfortunately, they're afraid to seek healthcare because of the discrimination and the discriminatory legal discrimination that they would face. And then I just want to make sure that some of the organizations that have been working on decrim, they're working on a two-part process. So Decrim Now, BYP 100, whom I've spoken to, they are working toward making sure that there's a long-term public health approach, that our sex workers have access to housing, have access to healthcare, have access to jobs that pay above the minimum wage so that they can survive and thrive. Thank you.
Mr. Evans, you wanted to add something on this?
Yeah, quick. In the 30 years I've been on the council, prostitution has gone down enormously. I just want to make sure people understand, in the Logan Circle area, particularly at 13th and Mass, is this epicenter. What we did and continue to do is focus on the Johns and the pimps. I have always instructed the Metropolitan Police, do not arrest the sex workers. That does nothing for us. Focus on the Johns, focus on the pimps. And you remember, one of the early bills I had was the car seizure bill, where we would seize the cars of people coming in from Maryland and Virginia, hold them for 5 days, and then release them after that. And it was called Honey, I Lost the Car. It was a very effective.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Yeah. And that's the approach we need to take.
All right, unfortunately, I'll have to move on to another topic now because we're coming up towards the end. So every candidate is going to have 30 seconds for this question. What area of the criminal justice system in DC do you see as the ripest for council oversight? And what particular program, what particular agency would you zero in on? So we'll start with Mr. Fanning. 30 seconds.
Good question. So some of the as you know, I worked in the mayor's office and worked with the Office of Returning Citizens, and I supported funding for the 14th Street Clean Team, which hires returning citizens. But I would also focus on Hope Village and how we know what's going on outside, but we need to know what's going on inside. And because we didn't know what was going on inside, because we don't manage the property.
Thank you, Mr. Fanning.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Grossman, you're up next.
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you see as the ripest area for council oversight when it comes to the criminal justice system?
I think there are a lot of areas that are ripe for oversight. I think the Metropolitan Police Department in particular. Look, I worked for a federal judge on DC's federal court, and we have tons of fantastic law enforcement officers that are trying to make our community safe. But one thing you notice when you work at that court is case after case after case where there's allegations of police abuse and people's constitutional rights and basic dignity being violated. This is something that the council can and should and must do more oversight of to make sure we're protecting our residents and making sure we're protecting their rights.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
Yeah, this is an easy one. We got to get control of our courts, and we got to get control of our criminal justice system. Back in the day, we used to pay for the courts. In the Revitalization Act in 1996, that was ceded over to the federal government, the biggest mistake that was made in that act. Without control over appointing our judges and our courts, our criminal justice system is literally run by the federal government. Secondly, the U.S. Attorney does our criminal prosecutions. That needs to be moved into our own Attorney General's office. Again, a deal that was made when the city was set up in 1975 that needs to be undone.
Mr. Evans.
No better time than right now to go after those two areas.
All right. Mr. Hernandez.
Sure, I'd certainly love to see local control of the entire criminal justice system, but for one of the things I think that we can do now without partnership outside like that is I would like to emphasize and encourage a return to a more community-focused policing effort. I would like to see police officers much more a part of the community and on foot patrols, getting to know residents, getting to know the citizens. I think a lot of the negative experiences we have with the fighting between comes
Thank
from
you.
not
Time's
being a
up.
part. Yeah, thank you.
Patrick Kennedy, you have 30 seconds.
Yeah, I also agree that we should take the courts back, but I have to say, within the things that are within our current control, for me, the one that glares at me is the Department of Youth and Rehabilitative Services. I mean, it's been an issue in this city for years. New Beginnings, Councilmember White was down there just in the middle of this virus, with concern that folks were having about their loved ones that were there. I mean, we are failing our young people, I think, pretty thoroughly in this city across a number of different areas. We have the most opportunity with our young people, especially if we emphasize the rehabilitative part of DYRS's name. We need to do a lot better
Thank
job
you.
for young offenders.
All right, next is Brooke Pinto. What do you see as the ripest areas for council oversight on criminal justice? Oh, please unmute.
A lot of our criminal justice challenges root from the fact that we don't have local control of our jails. If someone gets sentenced to 1 day over 1 year, they could be shipped off to anywhere in this country, and then we are surprised when they can't reintegrate back into society when their own families couldn't visit them while they were serving their sentence. So that's definitely a big place to start, and that goes with our follows through to our prosecutorial authority with the Attorney General's office, make sure our local courts are responsible for our local crimes and our local parole board. Right now with our system, I think that we have to have more body cameras and that we need to increase our restorative justice programs.
Ms. Zhang, you're up next.
You know, I agree a lot with what most of the candidates have said. I just think that we need to really focus on creating an economy that is more diverse and helps people of all socioeconomic levels thrive. So Ward 2 specifically, we have a significant homeless issue where people don't have access to mental health resources, opioid abuse resources, and housing at the same time. I'm not saying they don't have access to those resources, but it needs a holistic effort of all of these agencies working
together. Thank you. Your
together.
time is up.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Puta, you're last.
Thanks a lot. So I've actually been doing oversight over the police department for many years in any capacity I can. Listen, we work with the police as ANC commissioners, but I took every opportunity to testify at the DC Council about how to improve policing in our city. I joined the Citizens Engagement Academy so that I could learn from the top police leaders how they do things and how they can and should be doing things better. And I pushed hard with community members. Some of the people who are co-sponsors of this call, of this meeting, MLove, the Muslim.
Thank you. Your time is up.
For hate crimes, to be better on hate crimes and the immigrant community. Thank you very much.
All right, with that was all the questions that we have. So we'll now move into a 1-minute closing statement for every candidate. So you can either use this as a closing statement or to address any criminal justice issue that you haven't been able to address in this debate. Like with the opening statements, the order was randomly chosen, and the first up is Ms. Zhang.
Thank you again, everyone, for having us. I've been working on DC statehood for the last 2.5 years with the League of Women Voters. I took part in this issue because I really believe that everyone needs to have a voice and a voice that is heard in our democracy. And for me, creating policy is one portion of this job, but also making sure that when we create policy, that it is properly enforced and that there is correct oversight, and that when we create rules and regulations, that it really takes in account the diversity in our community, because we want that to stay and to thrive. And so I'm committed to working with all organizations. I'm making sure that I have an open door policy. And I think the most important thing is that you want a council member that is accessible, whether you're a business or a nonprofit organization. And so I hope that after this conversation, I have the opportunity to speak to the many wonderful co-hosts part of this evening tonight. And voting for Ward 2, I'm taking part in the primary and the special election. So we hope to see you June 2nd and June 16th.
Thank you very much. Next up, John Fanning.
Thank you for that. I'm sorry, I must have misunderstood your last question. I thought it was oversight and what programs would you support. And that's why I brought up the Office of Returning Citizens and the clean teams. But I would go back to data from the Metropolitan Police Department, bias, and excessive forced arrests. But I really think this is a great topic because I think there's things that we can work on, as partners if I do get elected to the city council. One is securing funding from the Housing Production Trust Fund to create more transitional housing. And I also think that working together that we can not treat our residents that are sentences within the system as the least, the lost, and the last, because I sense some of that was going on during the coronavirus transmission, and that there should have been an action plan to treat this population.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Next up, Jordan Grossman.
Thank you, and thanks again, Fenton, and to our sponsors. Just quickly to jump back to the decriminalization conversation, I just want to say that the bill very specifically, in partnership with groups like HIPS and others, make sure not to touch the ability to combat human trafficking. And as I think Daniel mentioned, by reducing resources spent going after sex workers, we could actually maybe boost our efforts against human trafficking. And then going after folks who are purchasers, if I'm selling, bread baskets, if you're criminalizing my customers, you're not helping me. So just to go back on that, it's a big reason why I support decriminalization. More broadly, I think we really need a council member who's going to fight, not just to say yes or no, I support this piece of legislation or not that, which is very important, but is going to do persistent and active oversight over these issues. So we can try to prevent things, prevent violence, prevent incarceration before they happen. I think as you brought up the DC jail issue, it's not just that we correct it when it happens, but that we're doing things, proactive oversight beforehand so we don't reach this horrible point. So thanks again for the conversation. I really appreciate it.
Next up is Patrick Kennedy.
Well, thank you, Fennet. And again, I want to thank all the organizers and in particular the ACLU for giving us all this opportunity. In the course of my involvement locally, I've always been a big believer in community engagement and really building, I think, from the ground up. I think that you can solve people's problems and you can achieve really great things. And it's not a narrow view of community engagement to just look within your own community. You have to look at communities all across the city. And that's certainly the sensibility that I've tried to carry forward in my work on the ANC, doing right by my neighbors in a way that also does right by the folks across the city who come to Ward 2. I think the Ward 2 council member, you're not just representing the residents who live in the ward, you're representing businesses, you're representing institutions, schools that are used by people from all across the city. And so I think there needs to be somebody in this job who has an understanding and a degree of social consciousness, not just of our own constituents, but the needs of folks all across the city. And I'm proud of my work over the last decade at the community level to try and achieve that end with healthcare issues in the hospital and other things. And I look forward to having the opportunity to continue on it if I'm elected to the council. Thank you very much for your consideration and for listening to me this evening.
Next up is Kishan Putta.
So thank you, everyone. My name is Kishan Putta. Before I forget, my website is kishan4dc.com. And I wanted to finish off by where I started. My mother and father were born in small rural villages in South India. They didn't have running water or electricity, but they made it to America. And, I didn't come from privilege or money, but my parents were public servants their entire careers. They taught me to give back to my community and to look out for people who weren't as fortunate. And so that's why for the last 6 years, I worked in DC, in every ward of DC, in the lowest income communities of DC, helping the vulnerable get healthcare access. That's why President Obama's Surgeon General has endorsed me as the one who can help DC climb out of this public health crisis. He lives in Ward 2, and I will look out for all communities, including the immigrant community, which does not have representation on our DC council, and that's some needed diversity that we need for our city, and I will never forget them. Thank you very much.
Next up for closing statements is Daniel Hernandez.
Yeah, as we talk about the range of issues that we touched on here tonight, and the many issues that we didn't get to, I think it's important to realize these aren't just abstract ideas or things that would be nice. These are policies and decisions that have a real impact on people's lives and on some people's deaths. I think it's important to have someone who has a personal connection and a personal experience to many of these necessary reforms. Like I mentioned, in my introduction, I grew up around the harm that the war on drugs, the war on poverty that has been conducted over the past 30 or 40 years, and before that to a degree. I'm someone who will take these issues seriously and keep them first and foremost in my mind, and has the experience to know what we need to do better. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Next up is Brooke Pinto.
Thanks. So 3 quick clarifications from earlier. One, Jack had mentioned he was the only person who had dealt with the budget. That is not true. I used to represent the Office of Tax and Revenue and worked very closely with the council on the citywide budget at the Attorney General's office. And to Jordan's point of it being the rainy day, I think it's a really nice idea, but the rainy day fund has to be replenished for the next rainy day. And I think it's irresponsible not to do so. And it's important to recognize we can care for the most vulnerable among us while also looking out for the long-term financial health of our city, and those do not have to be mutually exclusive. 2, I am supportive of decriminalizing selling sex. I dealt with somebody just last month who was trafficked, and she was too fearful to come forward because of the criminalization. So it's one thing to advise MPD not to prosecute these crimes or arrest these cases, but another thing to make clear in the law. The Jails and Justice Task Force that was mentioned, I was proud to serve on the mayor's task force for jails and justice. And I'm really hopeful that this COVID provides an opportunity for us to make longer term progressive reforms.
Thank you. Your time is up.
That are sustained. So thanks for having me.
The final closing statement of the night goes to Jack Evans.
Okay, and I certainly want to take this opportunity to thank everyone, the ACLU, of which I mentioned I've been a member for the last 20 years, and all of the co-sponsors for putting on this forum tonight on this very, very important issues. The city and the world have changed in the last 2 months, and the next council member has to be someone who is knowledgeable about the finances. There's just no way around it. We will be facing a $1 billion shortfall very quickly, and all the programs in the world are going to be in danger unless we solve this problem. And the Washington Post last Saturday said it bluntly. Jack Evans remains the district's most knowledgeable and experienced lawmaker on the city finances. And that's what we need on the council today. This is an opportunity as well. As I mentioned, we don't have control over our courts. We don't have control over our criminal justice. And it costs $300 million a year to do that. This is an opportunity, I believe, to get those things back if we manage everything correctly. Again, for the last 30 years, I've worked with the ACLU on a number of these issues and will continue to do this as your council member, making this a city that works for all of us. So I want to take this opportunity. Thank you very much for having this tonight.
All right, and with that, that's the end of our Ward 2 Council Candidate Forum. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you for all of our candidates giving us perfect attendance tonight. So remember that the primary election is June 2nd, and the special election, I'm about to blank on it,
June 16th.
is June 16th. So be sure to participate in both elections, and remember that the Board of Elections is urging everyone to request an absentee ballot, which you can do through mid-May.
Thank you very much, Bennett. I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
You got another career.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night to the Ward 2 candidates. This is Monica Hopkins. Once again, I am the Executive Director of the ACLU of DC. So thank you to all of the candidates. Again, don't forget to request an absentee ballot for the June 2nd primary. You can do that going to dcboe.org. This is sort of a midpoint reminder as we move into the Ward 4 candidates who will be joining us in a moment. For those of you who are joining us on Zoom and are new to joining us, you will not have access to your video, so we can't see you, or to your audio. If you would like to ask questions, please do so using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And answering those questions will be at the discretion of the moderator. And as our moderator, I am delighted that Bennett Nirapil of the Washington Post, who is amongst our most dogged DC Council reporters, has joined us tonight as the moderator. For those of you who don't know Fennett, Fennett covers DC government and politics for the Washington Post. And before he joined the Washington Post in 2015, he covered the California State House for the Associated Press and suburban government outside Portland, Oregon for the Oregonian. One more note, we do have closed captioning on this webinar, and additionally we do have translators available for this webinar. If you need translation services, please call the number that is on your screen. We will also put it in the chat. And we have asked that the candidates please speak slowly so our translators and our closed captioner can make sure everyone hears what you have to say. Finally, I want to thank all 15 of our coalition partners in presenting this candidate forum on criminal justice issues. So I will turn it over to Fennett. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you to both of our Ward 4 Council candidates for appearing tonight. And thank you for all the members of the community who are taking time out of quarantine and stay-at-home orders to stay engaged in their local and civic affairs. So the incumbent Brandon Todd is not here at the debate tonight, citing a scheduling conflict, but we will hear from Janice Lewis-George and Marlena Edwards. And if you have a question in the audience, you can submit it using the Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom. So with that, let's get started. We'll give both candidates an opportunity to give a 1-minute opening statement introducing themselves. We'll start off with Janice Lewis-George.
Good evening, and thank you, Fennett. Thank you for the ACLU and the partnership organizations for this opportunity. My name is Janice Lewis-George. I am a third-generation Washingtonian, born and raised in Ward 4, where I'm running for council. I am deeply rooted in making sure that we have a criminal justice system that works for all of us. And for me, that starts because of what I experienced growing up on 2nd and Kennedy Street. And losing family members to the criminal justice system, losing neighbors to gun violence, and working as an assistant attorney general and having to really have speak with members and family members and neighbors who lost members of their family. And so I am committed to finding evidence-based solutions that work to solving crime. I have worked on these with these evidence-based solutions at the Attorney General's office, and I want to see us solve our criminal justice system problems that we see every single day playing out, even especially now during our COVID-19 crisis. So I look forward to this conversation tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Edwards?
Good evening. My name is Marlena Edwards, and I am very appreciative to the ACLU and your partners for inviting us to speak this evening. As you know, I'm a candidate for Ward 4. I'm a native Washingtonian. I'm a lifelong Ward 4 resident. I have a master's of social work, and I have over 23 years of experience in working with the district government. So I've worked extensively with individuals who've been touched by the criminal justice system, and I've actually worked with individuals who are either in prison and actually going into the prisons, or people who are re-entering into society and assisting them with reintegrating back into the community. I have also worked on numerous committees and boards throughout the city that deal with social justice and with those who are disenfranchised. So I thank you again for the opportunity to be here with you this evening.
All right, so thank you both for your opening statements. So both candidates here tonight are running against an incumbent, Brandon Todd. How would you you grade Brandon Todd's performance on criminal justice issues in particular? We'll start off with Janice Lewis George.
Yeah, I would say the biggest issue with our incumbent when it comes to public safety in our ward and criminal justice system is he focuses on using the same practices over and over again that haven't gotten results. His fallback is always on policing and just increasing police presence as if that is the solution. He has been reactive instead of proactive. And so one of the things that will be different for me as the Ward 4 council member is that I will be proactive, focusing on community-based solutions to solve our problems in public safety. I know that vanity license plates isn't the answer. I know expanding the Cure Violence Interrupters program in Ward 4 is. I know that making sure that we engage all of our community members is going to be the case. I know that fully implementing the Cure Act is the way that we can solve these problems and making sure that MPD is compliant with that. And so I will be have that oversight and be more of a proactive council member than a reactionary council member falling back on practices that don't work.
Thank you. Ms. Edwards?
I would not grade the present incumbent council member well at all. There are serious issues with policing that continue here in Ward 4. We need to be proactive, and we need to have more satellite policing, more foot patrols, more segues in the community, more interaction with the police on the ground and actually speaking with community members as opposed to riding around in vehicles. Also, we need to look at an overall public safety plan because there are issues with even school children, families who've expressed to me that their school children may possibly face gang violence just trying to walk home from school. So we need a better solution. And I believe that I have the experience and I'm able to collaborate with the different groups in the area to get them working together so that we have a better public safety plan in the ward.
Thank you. The next question is, what people and what organizations would you rely on the most for advice on criminal justice issues if you're elected to the DC Council? We'll start off with Mrs. Edwards.
Yes, one of the organizations, well, the key organization would be the Metropolitan Police Department, the District of Attorney General's Office, the U.S. Attorney General's Office, to look at the funding that is coming down so that we make sure that we're getting our adequate share of funding coming into the district to assist with financing programs. And also with community groups. I've been on the board of directors for the United Planning Organization, Developing Family Center, and other groups, Emory Beacon of Light, which are looking at the situation with individuals who are disenfranchised and suffer with poverty. So those are the key groups. The community as well needs a hand, and also the end user. We could never forget them, and to get their opinion and get feedback from them on how we are doing.
Thank you. And Janice Lewis George, what would be your key areas for advice and counsel on criminal justice issues?
My key advice on criminal justice issues here in the
Your
city.
key sources of support, or your key sources of advice.
Yeah, so for me, some of my key sources of advice will come from, as I've said today, community members working with our neighborhood, CAC, working with the organizations here before you on the call, from the ACLU to the reentry to Black Lives Matter DC, working with our government organizations, the Attorney General's Office, the Office of Neighborhood and Safety Engagement, working with our faith-based community organizations and members who have been a part of Ward 4 and solving these problems. One of the things that we've seen that was helpful in Chicago is that they created the Partnership for Safety safe and peaceful communities, which was a collaborative of about 70 community organizations and entities. And I want to see, as a council member, creating that same organization here, a partnership for peaceful communities, and it will involve the organizations on this call, as well as community stakeholders, government stakeholders, and all in the organizations placed on this call today.
Thank you. So the next question, and this has come from some of our community organizers, we've seen a lot of localities, including DC, taking steps to reduce the prison population and jail populations during the coronavirus outbreaks. For example, in DC, police have stopped taking people into custody for low-level offenses. Do you believe that these practices should be made permanent once this outbreak and the state of public health emergency is over? We'll start off with Janice Lewis-George.
Yeah, I think we have to focus on reducing violent crime. And the way we do that is we stop criminalizing a lot of our crimes that I would consider crimes of social conditions that people have been part of. And so we absolutely want to focus our resources on reducing gun violence and violent crimes, and taking away the police resources on these smaller offenses that don't do anything but contribute to the mass incarceration of Black and Brown families and members of our community. And so I do think this is a step that we need to take to move forward. COVID-19 has shown us the weaknesses in our system. And one of the weaknesses we have seen is that the focus on small level offenses is a waste of our resources and a waste of our time, and we should be focusing on solving our major issues in criminal justice.
Marlena Edwards, do you believe that the policies that have been put in place to reduce the jail population should be made permanent after COVID-19?
Yes, definitely. The policies need to be more aggressive, and we need to look at more of the issues that deal with people with mass incarceration. In January, I attended a conviction integrity unit inaugural gala that was started by the district attorney, Paul Howard, there in Fulton County at the Tyler Perry studio. And they wanted to deal with the fact that there are people who are being sentenced for crimes much too long, inordinately sentenced. And they want to look at getting it right in terms of, were people sentenced properly or over sentenced, and do we need to just get them out of jail? And there's a lot of racial bias when it comes to crimes. So there's definitely room for improvement and to continue on with releasing people from jail who do not need to be there.
Thank you. We'll now go to a question from the audience. This is from Tiffany Bolden. How do you overcome the lack of trust in MPD and police in general within the Black and Brown community in order to truly initiate community policing? So we'll start off with Janice Lewis-George.
Yeah, I think we overcome that distrust by MPD taking accountability first and foremost for the practices that have happened. We encourage this trust by making sure that gun recovery unit officers are not taking photos with white supremacy symbols and happily wearing those symbols as they stop and frisk Black and Brown children. We take it back by having police officers not just reacting to crime, but being a part of our communities, coming into our communities in a positive way, and not just only when we see them when a crime happens. They get out of their cars. Here in Ward 4, we see officers in their cars, sitting in their cars, but never getting out and talking, engaging with our community members. And we want to see more of that. We do that by MPD stopping their practices of harassment in our Black and Brown communities. And that's how we build trust, with accountability and oversight in our MPD department.
Thank you. Marlena Edwards, what's your response?
I'm sorry, please repeat the questions.
The question was, I'm sorry, I lost my place. I'm sorry, I lost my place here. Janice Lewis George, can you help me out here?
Yeah, how do we build community and community trust with our Metropolitan Police Department?
Well, thank you so much. As I mentioned before, we need more community policing. There are quite a few officers here in the Ward 4 community who a lot of us know personally. We need more community policing. Also, we need more training. And as an individual has a master's in social work, there are colleagues of mine who've worked on initiatives where they have gone into the Metropolitan Police Department in order to provide training for police officers, because there's different issues that they may have problems with. Such one key issue is mental health, and understanding how to deal with mental health patients so that they don't end up getting killed because people don't understand that they're in psychiatric distress. So just getting more officers on the ground, reinstituting the officer-friendly program so that officers are going back into the schools so that children don't fear the police, or their family members or community members no longer continue to fear each other, but
thank you, your time is up.
How to work together.
So one of the major issues that the DC Council is going to be dealing with, even after COVID-19, is the hit to the budget. And we're expecting hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more, to be cut from the budget in the upcoming year. So just start off, what areas, what programs in the budget would you prioritize the highest to protect from cuts? Mrs. Edwards?
Any of the problems that deal with the Department of Youth and Rehabilitation Services, to make sure that we are able to deal with and help youth rehabilitate before they go on to harder criminal activity, so that we can get them back into the community. So that's one area that I would not cut. And also any of the programs dealing with CISOSA that deal with helping people to get back into the community, to get back into halfway houses, making sure that those programs are not cut, that help to provide wraparound services to individuals who are coming out of prison so that they can come back and be participating members in our community.
All right, Janice Lewis George.
Yeah, for me, I look at our budget as a reflection of our priorities as a city. And I recognize that the crisis that we're in right now, we're going to see some budget cuts. But I think it's a time for us to actually dig deep, look at our broken procurement system and fix it, look at where we're duplicating processes and looking where we're duplicating funds. And fix that and find ways. We have to still prioritize our housing fund and our housing needs and make sure that we have affordable housing in our city. We still have to prioritize our youth, our young people when it comes to education. So that means making sure right now we're not foregoing Head Start funds and funding at this very moment. So we need to prioritize education and our students and the money that they need. Our small businesses are suffering. Our independent contractors need support. And so prioritizing and making sure our small businesses can survive this and our undocumented workers also can survive this has to be a priority for us. And so those are the areas that I think we cannot bend on, and we have to protect our community and support them in every single way we can.
Thank you. Now here's the flip side of that question. What areas in the DC budget do you see as ripe for cuts, or programs that could be eliminated and help us preserve money for other priorities? So we'll start off with Janice Lewis George. What would you like to see cut from the DC budget?
I think one of the areas we see that has some bloated funding is the Events DC budget. We've talked about that in the past and talking about the funding from Events DC. We even seen that very recently when we talked about needing to support right now our workers who don't fall under unemployment insurance and workers in the restaurant industry. And we've taken some of that money from Events DC currently. And so I think we can do that. I think we need to look at DCPS's the core team office, not to our education system, but the main office of DCPS, and look at how that funding is happening with administrators, and that funding not getting down to our students. So not ending that funding, but making sure the funding actually is going to students and not high paid workers in DC main office. I think we need to make sure that the intra-lot gaming debacle that occurred, so sports gaming right now, isn't a priority. And so I think these are areas where we can see make some changes, look at procurement, and find out where we're wasting money, and put more money where it needs to go in those systems.
Thank you. Marlena Edwards, what do you see as areas ripe for cutting in the DC budget?
I agree with Ms. Lewis George with Events DC. I was also going to mention DC Arts and Humanities, now that it's a time where we're buckling down and this COVID-19 is going to change everything. So that's two areas that need to be looked at. And more specifically, overall general contracting and procurement throughout the district government, because there is a lot of waste with services that have been contracted out that were done by district government workers, and you don't see it previously, and you don't see any savings.
So now that we discussed the budget, let's talk about another area that's common for council members, ward level council members, and that's constituent services. One of the most common complaints and kind of contacts that council members get from their constituents is about public safety. It's about recent shootings in on their block, or about crime concerns. How do you balance the calls from constituents who want to see more policing in response to these incidents with the calls from constituents who don't want to see over policing? So we'll start off with Marlena Edwards.
Well, how you would balance it is to make sure that you have, as a ward council member, to make sure that you would have a very tight team that is very closely rooted to the community, has a very good understanding of what is going on in terms of public safety, and also making sure that regular issues are being met, whether it's the street light that's out, whether it's the pothole that's out, and just making sure that, and also working in tandem with ANC meetings, the ANC commissioners, ANC meetings, to find out what are some of the more granular issues that are happening in terms of crime, so that you make sure that more serious crime that's happening that may be embedded and hidden in the community is getting addressed.
Janice Lewis George, how do you balance the calls for more policing with the calls for less policing?
Yeah, I think how we balance it is delivering results. When I talk to Ward 4 neighbors across our ward, they don't tell me they want more policing. They tell me they want to feel safe in their neighborhoods. They don't tell me they want more policing. They say to me, I want to see solutions to solving public safety. And so because over and over again, they haven't seen real solutions, they've seen over and over again promises being made that haven't been met. I think the way you solve that problem is by showing them and delivering results. And actually introducing real legislation to make that happen. And so I don't think that our community as a whole want to just see more police. They just want their families to be safe. They want to be able to walk to their neighborhood, to the store, send their kids to school, and feel good about them coming back. And that's what I've heard overwhelmingly in Ward 4. And so that is what is important. And we talk about constituent services. It's working together with everyone and listening and being responsive to the community.
All right, we'll go back to the community for questions, and this was submitted by Tamika Spellman. Do you support the full decriminalization of drug paraphernalia and sex work? So we'll start off with Marlena Edwards.
No, I do not support the full decriminalization of, I would say, with drug paraphernalia, because you do have, or I would say, let's start with sex work first. As a social worker, it is my job to look out for public safety. And it is very hard to know whether someone is participating in sex work voluntarily, if it's by force, or if it's by human trafficking. So at this time, I cannot support decriminalizing it. Now, in terms of drug paraphernalia, as you know, we do have the Tacoma Wellness Center that is here in Ward 4 that provides medical marijuana. So as long as marijuana usage is within our current DC laws, whether it's medicinal or whether it's the quantity that you have, then yes, I agree with decriminalizing it.
Janice Lewis-George, where do you stand on decriminalizing sex work and drug paraphernalia?
I am in support of it. When we talk about decriminalizing sex work, I think we need to make sure that we be clear that the difference between sex work and sex trafficking, and the current law that David Grosso bill introduced made very clear that trafficking laws would remain the same. Criminalization creates the condition for our people to continue to be exploited, and that's why we need to change our approach. 85% of DC trans sex workers are Black and Latinx, and 37% of DC trans sex workers are homeless. Nobody is disposable. Let's recognize a person's agency over their life and of their body, and let's stop conflating the two issues with sex work and sex trafficking. I served on the Human Trafficking Task Force at the Attorney General's office. I did work with Hope Court, which is our court that focuses on helping young people who are part of sex trafficking. And I don't think that those two things have to be and are mutually exclusive. I think there has been a narrative that has continued to be made around it. And we have to remove the criminal punishments for sex work, which would actually decrease the shame and stigma and guilt, and actually provide more opportunities for Black communities to heal around sex trauma.
Alina Edwards, I'll give you a 45-second rebuttal.
Fabulous. Yes. There is the center headed up by Ruby Coronado that deals with transgender issues, that's right here in my immediate neighborhood. We need more funding at the DC Office of Human Rights so that they can have more programs for people who have different problems that may pertain to transgender or LGBTQ issues, programs, safe places such as housing. And that's how I would deal with pulling people out of possibly having to use sex work as a means of income, but rather providing more funding so that we can assist them so that they can mainstream. Anyone facing any of those types of issues can mainstream back into society safely.
All right, thank you. So we're now going to shift into some lightning round questions where I'm going to ask you to keep your answers very short, basically a yes or a no and a very brief description at that. And we'll elaborate if you disagree on some of these issues. So to start off, do you support ending the practice of police stop and frisk? Marlene Edwards?
Yes, I definitely support it.
Janice Lewis-George?
Yes, I definitely support it. We've seen that it hasn't worked.
Now, do you support the mayor's surveillance camera rebate program? And the sponsors who submitted this question have made the argument that there's not evidence that shows that surveillance cameras lead to crime deterrence. So Janice Lewis-George, where do you stand on the mayor's surveillance camera program?
I think the program needs to definitely recognize people's private ability to not be surveillanced by the police. And I have some huge issues with us relying on that program to reduce crime. I don't think it's the only solution, and it's been touted as like the #1 solution for solving crime. And we've seen that it has not done that. And people's civil liberties are at stake with the surveillance programs. And so I think we need some more research and better oversight into what's happening with these surveillance programs. And we just don't have that.
Thank you. Marlena Edwards, where do you stand on the surveillance camera rebate program?
In terms of the surveillance camera rebate program, I have seen individuals who are in crime neighborhoods where there's lots of crime, where it has been helpful and it helps them to feel protected, but we do not want overreaching by government where the surveillance overreaches into anyone's constitutional rights.
Thank you. Next question. Would you support the creation of a civilian oversight board of Metro Transit Police? Marlena Edwards?
Yes, definitely.
Janice Lewis-George?
Yes, definitely. And I know Robert White has done some work and some research on this as well. And I like the direction that he's going in, and I absolutely think we need to do more in that area.
Do you support the Second Look Amendment Act, which expands opportunities to request resentencing for young adults who committed their offense between the ages of 18 and 25? Janice Lewis-George?
Yes, absolutely. And I was absolutely upset with the U.S. Attorney's Office doing lobbying against something that we know is evidence-based, research-based, neuroscience-based. And so I was absolutely in support of it and really upset with the U.S. Attorney's Office's attack against that bill.
Marlena Edwards, where do you stand on the Second Look Amendment Act?
Definitely, it needs to be instituted nationwide. And as I mentioned before, that in January that I participated in the Conviction Integrity Unit inaugural that happened in Georgia. We need the same thing to happen in the District of Columbia or nationwide to make sure that even if it's youth 18 to 25 or adults, that we're revisiting their sentences, because people do not deserve for their civil rights to be trounced upon by what may have been a minor crime at that time and improper sentencing.
Thank you. So for everyone who's been listening, and you've probably been hearing a lot of agreement on the issues, with the exception of decriminalizing sex work. So the candidates here, I want you to make the case on why you're a better alternative than the incumbent and the other challenger here today. So let's start off with Janice Lewis-George. What makes you the best in the field?
Yeah, for me, one of the first things that I think is really important is that I'm in this race because of I have real life experience in not only in just the criminal justice field, but my family had to deal with housing displacement. I've had to take unpaid leave, so that's why paid family leave is so important to me. I've had family members incarcerated. I've had family members and neighbors fall ill to gun violence. I am the only candidate who has been working in the criminal justice system for the last 5 years. I'm the only fair elections candidate in this race, meaning I am not taking any developer or corporate money. And so I am unbought and I am unbossed by the current administration. And I'm going to fight for working people and working families. My stake in this race is not just about being an assistant attorney general. I've worked in education. I worked as a city year corps member. I served on the school board. So in two key areas, when we talk about education and criminal justice, two areas we really need work on. I have that experience in that area, but I don't think it's just that experience. I think it's really the experience I have living life in DC and seeing prosperity not reach all of us and not having a fighter for people and working families.
All right. Marlena Edwards, what makes you the best candidate in the Ward 4 council field?
It's because I have over 30 years of professional experience. I have worked for district government for over 23 years, helping hundreds of families to navigate the health and social services system. Also, I've worked extensively with on the ground organizations in Ward 4. I've been a member of the Ward 4 Democrats, the Shepherd Park Civic Association. I've been the Ward 4 representative for the DC Democratic State Committee. When I was in that position, I won by the highest vote in the history of the position, 7,143 votes by the Ward 4 voters, which shows that they have confidence in my ability to fight for them and advocate for them. So that's why I'm the best candidate, because of my record citywide of being known as one who fights for the community.
Janice Lewis George, what's your response to her contention that her background in holding civic leadership posts makes her the better candidate?
For me, as I said, I've held all most of the posts you just said. I serve on the Democratic State Committee now. I'm on an executive Ward 4 board, and I've served on the school board as well. So I've done communities, I've done service in this city, but I don't think that is what we need. People want someone who's going to be accountable to Ward 4 working families, Ward 4 communities, who's going to be a listener, who's going to be a fighter and work with them. Someone who's focused on evidence-based solutions that work, not just in criminal justice, but in education, in housing, someone who's really going to actually listen to the community and actually make decisions regarding that. And so for me, it's not just about what's on your resume. It's about what drives this for you. Where is your passion? And for me, like I've said before, my stake in this is being a third generation Washingtonian, growing up in Ward 4. And I've seen this city grow in prosperity, and that prosperity not reach everyone. I've seen the Ward 4 seat seen as a right and not the privilege that it is. And so a resume isn't just it. It's where is your fight? And my fight comes from my experience, and the experience that I share with many Ward 4 residents of wanting representation that is going to listen, that is going to be unbought and unbossed and willing to fight for Ward 4 families. And that is me. And that is why I have been endorsed by over 15 organizations, from unions to teachers unions, because I get the issues, I understand them, I've worked with them, and I'm going to fight and continue to fight for our community.
Marlena Edwards, I'll give you a 1-minute rebuttal.
Thank you so much. In terms of this run for Ward 4 City Council, I am a lifelong Ward 4 resident, and I am also a self-funded candidate, as opposed to getting any money from any corporations or people on the outside. So I do serve as an independent individual. And as an MSW, we're not in that profession for the glory. We're the individuals who are on the ground, first responders, to help people, whether it's dealing with education, whether it is with socioeconomic issues, whether it's with healthcare, whatever it may be, from birth to death. We are on the ground dealing with issues that everyone faces.
All right, so let's shift back to some policy questions. The fate of the district's only halfway house is uncertain right now. Would you support a halfway house in Ward 4? That's kind of construction of facilities is the type that typically generates community opposition. So would you be favor one if there's a proposal for a halfway house in Ward 4? Marlene Edwards?
Yes, I would support it. And I must say that there has been lots of issues with individuals saying that, in fact, Ward 4 has had too many group homes or halfway homes in the area. I would support it as long as it's in an environment where individuals would be able to flourish, and we would be able to function in the community. We do have, I would not say halfway houses, but group homes that function very well in the community right here in Shepherd Park, in Tacoma, DC. So as long as it's well planned, it's well monitored, it can work.
Janice Lewis George, what's your answer?
Yes, absolutely. One of the key issues for me is when we talk about reentry into the community, and having more supports in place for citizens who are returning home. And so we need transitional housing, and we can't reject community members trying to take steps to improve their lives. And I don't want to just see transitional housing just to house. I want to see support services in place, getting people job services, making sure they can expunge their records, making sure they can be able to apply for jobs and have the supports they need. When we talk about the trauma and PTSD that comes from being incarcerated or just come from being in this society, having the supports they need from psychologists and social workers, having that support system in place for our returning citizens. I want to see a transitional house that takes into account all that residents need when they come back here. And so making them transition to affordable housing, jobs, being able to get the services they need.
Thank you. The next question is, would you support reducing the presence and number of police officers in DC schools? Janice Lewis George?
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about, MPD's budget, one of the biggest contracts they have is with police officers in school. Is one of the biggest funds we have. And when we talk about what we need more in schools, I would like to see some of that funding going towards having more social workers in our schools. Many of our Ward 4 schools have asked for that. From Roosevelt to McFarland, they've asked for more social workers, more social support, more trauma-informed training for teachers, more trauma support in our school system. When we talk about the school to prison pipeline, I worked as a City Year Corps member, and what we did was actually come in and we recognized that there were 4 factors: your math score, your reading score, your behavior, and your attendance score. And that determined whether you were gonna drop out or not. And so we as Corps members got in there and we took those students and got them back on track by reducing their problems in those areas. That's how we solved the school to prison pipeline. More support with our social workers, our psychologists, and our trauma-based supports for our teachers and our learning.
Arlena Edwards?
No, I would not reduce the police presence in District of Columbia public schools at this time, because there are a whole lot of other issues that people are concerned about. Safety. The students are concerned about safety. The teachers are concerned about safety, the parents, the community. So I have actually worked with DCPS, Office of the State School Superintendent, and Child and Family on initiatives that would help to bring more services into DCPS and OSSI, such as social workers, nurses, speech pathology, any of the school-based services that are needed in order to deal with a lot of the socioeconomic issues that our children deal with, and bring all of that tension and trauma to school. So no, I would not reduce police officers at this time while we're trying to work on getting to the root of, or we need to have more staffing to deal with the psychosocial issues.
We'll take another question from the community. This comes from Bill Rice. How can we bring home the 4,000 DC residents incarcerated in 35 states in Bureau of Prison facilities and halfway houses across the nation? We'll start off with Janice Lewis George.
Yeah, I think when we talk about, how we do that, that means we have to figure out our current system. And right now, statehood has been a current encumbrance to that problem. And so we need statehood. We needed it yesterday, honestly. We've seen with COVID-19, not being a state has hurt us. We missed out on $750 million in funding because we were not a state and we're not treated as a state, which we're fighting for now. We have to get back control over our criminal justice system. That includes the U.S. Attorney's Office right now, which is run by whoever is appointed by the president, and at this time is Donald Trump. So we need to switch that jurisdiction over to the Attorney General Office, who's elected by us. We need to switch our parole office as well, and the jurisdiction of parole back over to local jurisdiction. And I think we have to recognize that statehood has been an encumbrance to this problem. And at the Attorney General's Office, we've particularly been frustrated with not having a say in how we address public safety and crime in our city.
Marlena Edwards, how would you address the issue of thousands of DC residents who are incarcerated elsewhere in the country?
Well, first of all, we need to look at the funding that the District of Columbia receives to make sure that it's adequate so that we can put proper programs in place for returning citizens. I've actually volunteered over a 2-year period. I would spend the night at a transitional home located in Ward 4. We need more affordable housing and to work with more of community groups, faith-based groups on affordable housing. I've been on the board of directors for the Emory Beacon of Light, which built 90 units of housing so that there's a transitional housing component, and you must earn under $60,000 a year, not over $60,000 a year to be able to live there. So if you have more community groups that money can get into their hands to build appropriate affordable housing, more community groups with wraparound services, then yes, we'll be able to slowly begin integrating the 4,000 individuals back into our city.
All right, we'll have 2 more questions before we move to closing statements. The next one is also a community question from Allison Horn. What are your thoughts on how the Department of Corrections has handled the COVID-19 pandemic at DC jail? And what would you have done differently, if anything? We'll start off with Marlena Edwards.
This COVID-19 problem was handled very poorly at our city's correctional center. I would have looked at any other facilities that the District of Columbia would have been able to reopen on a temporary basis in order to have the social distancing, because it was not dealt with quickly enough. You have the officers are getting sick inordinately, the prisoners are getting sick inordinately, and we just needed to look at a better social distancing plan. That's how I would have dealt with it with any facility, if it was DC General Hospital or if it were old buildings at St. Elizabeth's Hospital that could have been reopened in order to deal with this.
Thank you. Janice Lewis-George, what would you have done differently, if anything, about DC jail during COVID-19?
Yeah, the first thing I want to say is the first question you asked is, how did I feel about it? And I think it was absolutely poorly handled. I think we warned a number of organizations, including organizations on this phone, warned about what COVID-19 impact could be and would be. And we didn't hear leadership listening. And as a result, we lost lives. We had correctional officers, inmates getting sick. When we talk about the conditions, we had inmates not being able to take showers, not being able to reach legal counsel or their families, not being able to have new clothes. And so I think it was inhumane. I think it was absolutely handled poorly. And I think what we should have done, first of all, is we should have took heed from the very beginning and started to create a plan where we were releasing individuals that could be released, and making sure that we could reduce the population. I think that we should have had safety guards in place to make sure that people were protected. We should have found alternatives for individuals to be placed. And I think we should have absolutely acted more swiftly. And I want to note, we didn't act swiftly because...
So our next, Nicole Porter, how do you define safety for Ward 4? So we'll start with Marlena Edwards.
I define safety as having proper housing in place, because you do have a very quiet issue with homelessness. There needs to be more housing, transitional housing that helps with safety. Also with having more on the ground policing, with the foot patrols, with the Segway, so that individuals feel comfortable no matter which part of Ward 4 you're in.
Janice Lewis-George, how would you define safety for Ward 4?
Yeah, I think safety for Ward 4 is about the ability to thrive as an individual and a community. Safety is about feeling, for families feeling like they can send their children to school and they will have safe passage. And that means even when it comes to our transit system and other systems in place, that we have safe streets, safe intersections for our students to be able to travel in. Safety looks like people not being afraid of the police officers in our community, but making sure that they know who the police officers are, and they don't see them as just reactionary, but proactive members of the community and being part of our community. Safety looks like all of our community members being treated fairly, being respected, and having the dignity they deserve and their families deserve. Safety is a peace of mind. And one of the ways you have peace of mind is having leaders who are going to make sure that you are protected and cared for and use evidence-based solutions that work.
All right, and with that, that's all the questions that we had. So we will let the candidates finish with a 1-minute closing statement. We'll start with Janice Lewis-George and then finish with Marlena Edwards.
Yeah. So I want to again take this time to say thank you to the organizations on this call for having this, and thank you, Fennett, for hosting. Listen, we are in a space with COVID-19 where we have seen systems in our city that are broken, systems that many of us have on this call have been fighting against. When we talk about stay at home, right? We've been talking about solving our problems in chronic homelessness and affordable housing before COVID-19 occurred. And so even more than now, we need leaders who are going to fight for affordable housing. We've been talking about inequities in our schools and having strong neighborhood schools, but we have students right now who, during this crisis, haven't been able to have internet access or have computers. When we talk about health, we knew that Ward 7, Ward 8 didn't have a hospital. Providence Hospital closed, and there were inequities in our health system. We've seen COVID-19 have an impact. We've seen our frontline workers have to go to work and not get the wages and fairness they deserve. And so all of these issues we know have been broken, and we need leaders who understand not just during the crisis that we have to fix this, but they understand even before. And that's why I'm running, to fix these systems, to fight for working people and working families. We have built a movement in this city, and join us at janice4dc.com. Thank you.
All right, Marlene Edwards, you get the last word.
Again, thank you so much to ACLU and all of the other community groups that has hosted this forum. Again, I thank you for this opportunity. I'm a passionate community activist, and I've been committed to social justice. I have 30 years of professional experience here within the District Columbia, working not only with district leaders, executive directors, and also working with directors on the national level. I've worked on the transition team for Attorney General Carl Racine, Mayor Bowser, Mayor Gray, and I've worked extensively with issues related to community health, economic development, and legislative policy. It's very critical that you have a leader who can look at issues that are happening holistically. We want to talk about issues such as public safety and crime. Well, a lot of that is connected to jobs. We look at the Walter Reed development. The Walter Reed development is moving too slowly, and it could provide jobs for individuals. So I thank you so much for this time, and am passionate about being the leader here for Ward 4 and to work with the entire city.
And that's a wrap for the Ward 4 Council Candidate Forum. So thank you everyone for tuning in. And please remember that the primary election is June 2nd. And the Board of Elections has encouraged everyone to vote absentee to reduce the risk of contracting coronavirus. You have a month longer to request your absentee ballot, and you can go to the DC Board of Elections website for more information.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And my name is Monica Hopkins. I want to thank the Ward 4 candidates for joining us and answering all of these questions. For those of you who have stayed with us for the duration, I also want to once again thank the Ward 2 candidates. I want to thank Fennett for hanging tough for 2 full hours of candidate questioning over Zoom. We're really glad everyone joined us for this virtual candidate forum. I also want to really thank our co-sponsors and collaborators who are pictured on your screen today. Once again, remember to request an absentee ballot through dcboe.org. Thank you to everyone and have a fantastic night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah.